Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Not Your Average Joel. So today we are on episode 43 today. We are close to coming to an end as far as season two. And so far, season two has been going great. I've been able to bring back past guests and reconnect with them about a different topic that I want to talk about here on my podcast. And I've also been able to bring on new guests onto my podcast as well. Which, speaking of past guests, I actually have a past guest back here with me today. So I want to welcome back Max to my channel. This is his second time here. The first time he was here was few months ago, way back on episode 7. We talked about the importance of protecting ourselves, whether it is online or physically protecting ourselves and protecting others. So if you haven't checked that out, be sure to do so, whether it's on YouTube or on my podcast streaming platforms. So definitely go check that out, and as well as my other past episodes. So yes, welcome back and thank you for being here.
Thank you. It's great to be back. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
And
So
this was episode 47. Is that what you said?
this is actually 43. So it's
43. Wow. 43.
yeah.
That's a lot.
Yeah, so I've definitely been trying to reconnect with people of every from all over, just trying to talk about different topics, and I've definitely been enjoying it so far, and I'm just ready to keep going. But at the same time, during the holidays, I am going to be ready to take a break and kind of enjoy the holidays with my family and all that good stuff. And then once the new year comes around, I'm going to be ready to get back into the game.
Good
So,
deal. Good deal.
yeah, so today's topic of today is going to be on the idea of being physically rich and also being spiritually rich. So there's definitely some differences there, and there's definitely some important things that I want to bring up regarding both of those. So I want to be sure to cover those today. So I have a few questions that I want to ask Max, and I'm also going to give my input as well. So I think I'm going to go ahead and get into this first question. So the first question is, what is the difference between being physically rich and being spiritually rich? And before you answer, I do want to point this out to my viewers right quick that the idea of being spiritually rich may is not no exact like definition. I think people have a different definition as long as it's kind of like around the same kind of idea. So I just wanted to point that out right quick, just in case if people may think we may have a different definition of spiritually rich. So now you can go ahead.
Okay. Okay. So when I think of physically rich, I think of, in the physical world, actually having money, wealth, the ability to get resources, things that you want, that kind of thing. Whereas spiritually rich, I think more of like a mental health, like an inner peace kind of deal. And you know, I kind of hearken it to like a Buddhist or Taoist saying. I can't remember which one it is. It's like, that desire is the root of suffering, and so that, if you could minimize your desire, then you could, minimize your suffering. And so to me, that's kind of my pathway to spiritual happiness or spiritual richness, is trying to minimize desire, trying to, you know, be happy with less, I guess you could say. You're in a constant state of hunger, and you're constantly in terms of hunger in multiple ways. So in terms of like, you can have hunger for food, a hunger for validation, a hunger for love, a hunger for XYZ, any number of things. But eventually you can satisfy all those hungers, and then eventually you're gonna want something else. You're gonna want something that you don't have. And so to me, the ultimate peace of mind would come from, being happy in yourself, being happy with what you have, minimizing your desire. It's kind of like you got a hole and you're trying to fill the hole with crap and or stuff, and then the real key is, not to try to fill the hole, just try to, shrink the size of the hole. It's kind of like how I think of it. Uh, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so I definitely think you made some very good points regarding both. Like when I think of physically rich, I do think of just loads of money, something like that, of course. Thinking being financially well. So I guess thinking more of even like the materialistic kind of things of having the nicest things as well, like nicest cars and big house and things like that. So I think of that when it comes to physically rich. And then when it comes to spiritually rich, I think of more of the idea of like what's going on the inside and like having the contentment of what with what you have basically, because I think there's definitely many cases where you can be physically rich but not be happy. So like you can be physically rich but not be spiritually rich. And I think of, yeah, spiritually rich having like happiness and like things that are intangible. I think that's the word. Is like things that are from the inside, whether it's having happiness, having love, having joy and peace. So I think of things like that, or even things like wisdom and knowledge. Like I could see that as being something coming, that goes into the equation of being spiritually rich. So I think, yeah, it just boils down to the physically rich coming like things that you see like on the outside, and then spiritually rich being things that are happening on the inside in your mind and in your heart.
Yep, 100%. Absolutely, I agree.
Yeah, so I think there are some physical things that I feel like can bring spiritual richness. Like I guess for me personally, like I guess like one example I could think of is of course having family and friends. Like I feel like that could
Yeah,
bring the spiritual richness of I may not have a lot of money, but like I have a big family, and so having that big
yeah,
family brings like the love and the joy and like just having that quality time with them. So I could think of that as one example. And then one other example I could think of is for me, I guess my faith is very important to me. So like
yeah,
when I think of like gaining knowledge and like knowing more about God, I think about the Bible. So I guess I could even think of the Bible being something that is filled with the idea of being spiritually rich, of like gaining knowledge
yeah.
about the word and all of that. So those are like two big examples I could think of that have personally affected me to where I can see something physical being a good thing for spiritual richness.
Yeah, yeah, true. I mean, because, but really, well, how should I say this? I think with something like the Bible, I think what facilitates the richness there is the words and the meaning communicated via the word, and not necessarily the physical printing of the book, but the ideas that are encapsulated in the book. But but still, I mean, yes. Um, and certainly people say, it's better to cry in a Mercedes Benz than to cry in an Altima or something. Uh, but one thing, actually, got how should I say this? There, there was an old parable. I can't remember what Eastern faith it came from. Like it's either Hindu, I think it's Hinduism, uh, which is the oldest existing religion in the world, apparently. Um, there was a king who, I think it was a king or a captain of a bunch of troops. They're coming back from some victory that they had, and they stopped at a stream of water, like a river, creek, whatever, to get some water, bathe, whatever. And hopefully they got the water before they bathed. Uh, but the king he came up and realized that this really expensive, very nice ring that he had was missing. He had dropped it in the water, and he commanded all his soldiers and everybody, I gotta find my ring. Let's find my ring. Everybody get it, blah blah blah. And so the soldiers set upon the water and all their horses, on top of all their horses, and they're moving all around trying to find the ring, and they couldn't find it. They were for hours trying to find it. And the king walked over to a yogi who was like sleeping under a tree or hanging under a tree nearby. I said, "Hey, I want you. I want to enlist your help to help me find my ring. Get over here and help us." And the fellow told him, "I want you and your soldiers. I'll help, but on one condition. I want you and your soldiers to leave, go somewhere, go off wherever, go sleep under a tree, and I'll come to you in a couple hours and I'll have your ring for you." And so they did that. They went off and went to sleep under some trees. And a couple hours later, he came back and he had the ring. And they asked him, "How did you do that so quick? We were there for like 6 hours trying to find it." And he said, well, I just sat there and I let the water get calm again. I let the mud settle out, and I was able to walk right up and find the ring. And so you can read all sorts of ways into that story, but I kind of see it as like the ring is like your peace, your inner happiness, and like the soldier is trying to muck up the water, trying to find that inner happiness. It's like your actions trying to feed your desire, trying to feed your inner hunger, and the chaos of the world too, trying to make sense of everything out of that. But when really, it's calmness, and it's not the inner peace. You're not going to find it from disturbing the water with all sorts of things. You're going to find it from calmness and inner peace and minimizing the ruckus of the world. But I never said.
Yeah, I definitely appreciate you sharing that because I think that's even like I love stories like that where like whether it's a parable that may be true or not, but just even like the story of it all of like the core meaning goes back to just having that inner peace, which is something that you can't it's something that is happening on the inside of you in your mind and in your heart. So I think that's an amazing story, definitely for sure to share. And you are definitely right when it comes to like the Bible, for instance. Definitely, like you were saying, the printing of it is key, but like the most important thing is like the words within the word. And
Yeah,
so that's definitely a good thing to really point out for sure.
yeah, 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 yeah. Can't beat it.
Yeah. So, our next question that I have is actually going to be about like being physically rich, and this is just a theoretical kind of question. So, this is just something to ask out of fun. So if you won, like if there was a lottery happening, a big lottery, and you happen to win the lottery, and so let's say it's $1 billion. What are a few things that you would do with that money? What are some like things that you start thinking of right away, thinking of like what are some things you want to do?
So it's very hard to imagine what you would actually do besides maybe have a heart attack. Uh, uh, first and foremost is pay off every bit of debt for my family, pay off their houses, maybe buy them new houses, whatnot. Uh, and then you guys start thinking about in my mind, I always gravitate back towards giving or doing some kind of uh, outreach or some type of work, like maybe start a nonprofit or a soup kitchen. I don't know. Like there's so many. I would definitely have started an actual money making business. Uh, but then I would also have other ventures that were more along the lines of helping people and whatever those may be, community outreach. There's a plethora of different ways you could do it. And I know Tracy, she probably want me to have a little personal zoo or something. But yeah, I mean it's really hard to imagine what you would do with that much money. But that's kind of what I would kind of grab. Is I say that that's what I think I would do, hope I would do, but and probably move from away from the U.S. because things are getting weird here. But yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, things are definitely going crazy around here recently for sure. So, and you are
yeah,
right. There is, it is kind of hard to say in the moment what you would do. Is you could say one thing, and then when you're in that moment of actually winning the lottery, which is, it could be a rare thing, definitely. But if you were to happen to win it, you may go in a different direction. So, I definitely think,
yeah,
what you're theoretically thinking, like if it was to happen. And I think those are definitely some good things to do for sure, because I would probably be doing a lot of the same things, like as far as paying off like student loan debt. I would definitely be getting that out of the way and getting like credit card debt and stuff like that done. And then as well as like being able to help my family out as well when it comes to like having a better house, or more in maybe more in an area that they want to live in. Like currently I still live in Pinson, but like eventually we do kind of want to move into a different area. It just hasn't happened yet, but if I were to happen to win that money, I think we would definitely get ourselves into a different city, just out of more convenient. Like our family goes a lot more to like the Gardendale Fultondale area, So
Yep.
probably somewhere in that area. So that's kind of like the main reason. So I think, yeah, providing like housing for my families, those that are struggling, definitely having like an outreach program, I think would be awesome as well. Even though I haven't really done much of volunteering here in my life, but like it's something that I've always wanted to do. It's just haven't fully committed to it. But I think those are definitely some amazing things. And then another thing for me, I may want to just add right quick is the idea of like traveling. Like I love to travel, and it is definitely
Oh,
expensive out here to travel.
yes.
So I think just the idea of getting to travel all 50 states. I'm getting close to there. I'm at 36 right now. So I still got maybe I guess I got 14 states left, but then I would love to visit other countries as well that I've always wanted to visit. I don't think my goal is to visit every country because there are some countries I would like to avoid.
No,
Yeah.
no,
So,
no.
but there are plenty of countries that I would love to go visit and see. So I think traveling, I would add that to my list as well.
Oh yeah, that's actually a good point. I forgot to mention that.
Yeah. So yeah, so I think it's some good things to think about, but once we're in that moment, our answers could be completely different. But I'm kind of hoping it
Yeah,
won't change just because I think those are great things to do if we were to win the lottery.
yeah,
Yeah, so another question that have is in regards to being physically rich as well. So, what are some good and bad things that can happen out of being rich with having like loads of money? So, like I guess I could think of like a few pros and cons about it. So, I'm kind of curious what you're thinking.
yeah. So if you had just caboodles of money, $1 billion or whatever, like you, for one, good thing is, I mean, obviously you got $1 billion. You don't have any want or need that you just about can't satisfy, unless it's outside the law, and even then it's questionable. Um, um, but one thing is like eventually, if you constantly feed your wants and needs, then you'll get desensitized to things, and like you'll like if you're constantly having your good music and your good food, and like if you're constantly having wagyu steak, then like if one day you became this, like you'll never be able to see steak the same again. Like a regular old ribeye from Longhorn is not going to cut it anymore. You know what I mean? But so if you have nothing but good, you'll eventually good will have no more meaning anymore. There's nothing to contrast it to. Um, so I think to me that would kind of make you spiritually weak uh, if you didn't be careful with it. Not to say that you should suffer intentionally just to build character or nothing like that, but like just to have that comparison. And then another thing, if you're super rich like that, you could potentially be a target. People could try to get intentionally fender bendered by you, or no, my neck hurts, or all sorts of things like that. I couldn't imagine. Like I would probably get really paranoid if I had that much money, to be honest. Uh, but yeah, that's some pros and cons I can think of. Like, yeah,
Yeah, I think I would definitely be pretty paranoid as well because I would be like kind of going back to what we talked about previously about like protecting ourselves. I would definitely be having like a lot of security around. I'd be having and even like having security cameras, it doesn't prevent something from happening. It just
yeah,
catches the person that does the
yeah,
crime. So, but it's still important to have. But just thinking about like the security part, like I definitely would be having a lot more people surrounding me, people that I can
yeah,
trust. So yeah, definitely
yeah,
paranoia is definitely a con that I could think of for sure. And then as well as like you were mentioning about being like desensitized from like certain things, like you get almost so spoiled to the point to
yes,
where you don't think nothing is good enough. Like you were saying
yeah,
that ribeye is not going to be good enough. I want bigger, I want better, juicier. Like you just start thinking of all these, like you get kind of
yeah,
ungrateful. You kind of become very I don't know, just you almost think you're higher up above people. So there's that idea of being selfish and prideful, like that can come into the equation as well.
Yeah,
So those are definitely some bad cons. And then as far as good, the only good things, kind of like you were mentioning, the only good things I can think of is that like we're able to pay off stuff, like our loans.
yeah,
We're able to, hopefully if, I don't ever get to the point of being prideful, and hopefully I would be humble when it comes to being rich. I would love to give my money to other people, like
yeah,
family and loved ones. So I guess there are more opportunities for you to do things like that. So I guess I could see both ways, but I could definitely see more con than good, because
yeah,
you almost lose who you are in the process sometimes, if you
yeah,
let that little
yeah.
prideful bug like bite you.